Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is Global Reality Radio Network. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Late night Moonbat edition for you here tonight. Yet again, not a lot of material, so we're starting later into the Moonbat hours tonight. So thanks so much for staying up late with us and being patient and waiting around for the show. If you're listening live, if you're listening on a YouTube video or an archive later, thanks so much for tuning in as well. My website where this broadcast originates from is theglobalreality.com. That's theglobalreality.com, and just for the record, the only thing worse than Klingons are sand people. Always remember that. My email address, if you want to send in a email during the show for me to read, question, comment, anything, or any time as well for me to read, globalrealityshow@gmail.com, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's the email address there, and you can find all that stuff up there at my website, as well as links to buy my newest documentary, The Secret Volume 2, concerning the phony truth movement, the phony patriot movement, Alex Jones, the history of the truth movement. You can buy that up there. We also have the chip-in banners for the Rockwall film budget and the bills for the month as well. You can find those. That's how you support our work. And that's up there on the website as well. The recent show I did with Red Ice Radio with Henrik Palmgren is now up and available for download. It's all over YouTube as well. It's being spread around everywhere. Thanks to everybody that's been spreading that around. And thanks to everybody giving all the positive comments. Last night on the show, someone in the chat room had talked about, somebody in the chat room pointed out, it said that allegedly Henrik Palmgren on some radio show admitted that he was a 32nd degree Mason, and I said that I hadn't checked on that myself. I didn't know anything about it, but, if it was, then, if he was admitting it, then who cares? But, absolutely positively false. The person didn't check out and didn't pay attention to what was being said. And it was actually Henrik Palmgren reading a quote. And I did find that quote. The quote was, Wallace's reasons for wanting to introduce the Great Seal onto the American currency were based on his belief. Oh, is that it? No, that's not it. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Roosevelt, as he looked at the colored reproduction of the seal, was first struck with the representation of the all-seeing eye, a Masonic representation of the great architect of the universe. Next, he was impressed with the idea that the foundation for the New World Order of the Ages had been laid in 1776, May 1st, 1776, founding of the Illuminati, but would be completed only after, under the eye of the great architect. Roosevelt, like myself, was a 32nd degree Mason. He suggested that the seal be put on the dollar bill rather than the coin. So that's what he was reading from. So somebody heard that and thought that that was Henrik Palmgren admitting that he was a 32nd degree Mason. That's absolutely false. So I didn't, if anybody took that the wrong way, they'd see that I was implying that last night. I wasn't implying that at all. I like Henrik Palmgren. I have no reason to think that he's not legitimate. But, somebody asked, when somebody asks me about something, I'll respond to it. But like I said last night, I hadn't went and checked it out, so I couldn't vouch for that. And as soon as I went and checked it out, of course, I found out that it was just. But you know what? Somebody trying to do that. People have tried to do that to me before, so I know how he feels because I was reading this thing. It was about a UFO thing. It was like some Project Bluebeam type stuff, and this woman had a hologram beamed into her house that was like a hologram of Jesus standing there because it was in Virginia or somewhere, where everybody in the area was Christian. And she said, no, they thought they were going to fool me. And I knew it was a hologram and it was somebody, probably the government doing this. But they needed to check their facts better because if they really wanted to fool me, they would have picked something better than the image of Jesus because I'm Jewish. So somebody took that when I read that, when I said, because I'm Jewish, somebody took that and said, Josh Reeves admits he's a Jew. Because I was reading something. I mean, that's, and I'm not mad at the person who pointed this out. And I'm not making fun of them at all. I'm not mad at them for doing that. I mean, it's good that you're being aware of things, and it at least shows that you're perceptive and you're looking for, little things and you're paying attention. But I think this person, the reason I won't be mad at this person is because I think that they learned a valuable lesson here. And that is to, but if you tell somebody, here's the thing, if you tell somebody something like that, that's not true, the moment you share it with somebody other than yourself, you are then putting your good name and your image out there to be judged. And so, if you get a reputation, especially in the onset, of being somebody who tells people, information that hasn't been checked out fully or something, and you're just, you're going off kind of half-cocked, that's not a good way to do it. So, I think this person probably learned a valuable lesson here. Always check things out before you jump the gun, and don't, always double back and listen to things and make sure that, you're hearing things right before you jump the gun, because, you make accusations. And frankly, there's a lot of that crap, and I get tired of having to even see it and deal with it. And people always try to get me involved in it, and I won't even do it. But there are a lot of people who don't, and I'm not saying that the person who pointed out this Henry Palmer thing is one of these people. I'm just saying in general, there are these people who they don't have any kind of involvement in anything. They just don't do anything. They don't run a website. They don't make videos. They don't do a radio show. They don't, do activism of any kind, but they sit behind their keyboards and their computers and think that they're know-it-alls, and they just make comments in chat rooms and YouTube videos and message boards and stuff all day long. And those people are always the ones that are trying to pit, one group against the other, or one radio host against the other, and make factions and divisions. And those people are just suspect to me. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm used to people. That's why I don't come on half cocked and come on here with stuff that I hadn't checked out first. You know what I mean? Because, I don't know. There are, I'm not saying this person was doing that, but I'm just saying I am aware, and I've dealt with them 100 times. This is not my first rodeo, dude. I've been doing this for 5 years. I've seen everything you can see as far as people trying to feed me disinfo and people trying to feed me horseshit. And look, I've got a great nose for it. I have, there's stuff I've never even gone to air with or even brought up on the air before that people have sent in, hundreds of things through the years that have just been, obvious horseshit. I'll tell you one thing that was interesting that happened one time. There was this lady back when I was on Oracle, and I think she used to call, way back before that too. She used to call in when I was on TrueNet Radio back in the old days, 2007, 2008, when I first started on radio. And she was an older woman, and she always seemed to me like she was just, psychotic or a mental patient, or senile or something. But I don't think she was. She was just, I think she was a total plant. She used to call into my show all the time and just say the most retarded, asinine things that made no sense and weren't based in any kind of reality. And with the people that were listening to my show back then will remember that, and remember that she was calling in on a pretty regular basis. Well, come to find out, because I forget what she said, used to say her name was. She's calling to a lot of people's shows. She's calling Lee Rogers. She's calling a lot of people's shows. But somebody in my listening audience that was paying attention recognized her voice and went and matched it. And sure enough, she had said on another program her name, and it was the same name, same voice, and everything. Well, lo and behold, come to find out, this woman who was calling my show 2007, 2008, 2009, around that time, just always spouting this crazy disinfo type stuff, was actually a caller on Alex Jones' Y2K broadcast. And she was actually, if you go and listen to that, she was the woman that called in talking about the Russian nuclear plants or something like that. She called in with some just completely unfounded bullshit, like disinfo. And if you listen, Alex Jones takes what she says and says, "See, folks, we're getting reports in. Nuclear submarines and plants are going haywire." Blah, blah, blah. He doesn't even check it out. He just takes what she says from this caller and goes to air with it and just uses it as cannon fodder for his fear mongering for Y2K. And I just thought that was astounding, considering all the time she had called into my show just spouting absolute disinfo. And then here she is. I think her name was Rita. I want to say it may have been Rita. I can't remember. I think it may have been Rita. But here she is, just coincidentally enough, calling in on Alex Jones' Y2K broadcast, spouting the most ridiculous horseshit. And there he is, blatantly taking it, the ball, and running with it. I mean, to me, that in and of itself, I mean, obviously you get that from listening to it, but, that in and of itself, to me, sealed the deal that what he was doing was absolute intentional disinfo at that moment. So yeah, there's the listeners out there are great. They pick up on stuff sometimes and send it to me. It's good. But I think this person definitely learned a lesson. You got to be careful. And I just, I don't like all the fucking chatty Cathy, people trying to pit this person against this person and, fights between radio hosts and all that shit. It's just, I don't have time for all that, man. I've got to focus on the thing at hand. So just save your time trying to send me disinfo. It's not going to work on me. I'm not going to get up here and start talking about a bunch of shit unless I can check it out and verify it. Because my information that I put out on my own is stuff that I'm finding on my own and researching on my own and bringing to you. You know what I mean? I don't have people feeding me info and bringing me stuff. I don't have a team of researchers and a staff in a fucking office building. I have a desk in my bedroom, and that's my office, and I have me. I'm the one employee. So all everything. I'm jack of all trades, master of none around here. But that's that's what happens when you have people that are doing your research for you and people that are putting together your show for you every day. I mean, you start to lose grip with what reality is, because you're relying on everybody else to provide your reality for you. So yeah, again, just got to be careful about what you're going around saying and accusing people of, because you make sure your stuff's checked out and you check it out before you make claims like that. Because yeah, I may have gone and checked that out and found out that it is, but what if somebody saw that and just saw it for a split second but didn't see the response, or isn't hearing the response that I'm doing right now, or doesn't get that part of it? You know what I mean? Then you've done damage to that person's character. So, I'm just giving a warning to you, listener, whoever you were that pointed that out, Tixon or something like that in the chat room. I can't remember what their name was. You got to be very careful with that. This is not a game. This is real life. All this stuff that we talk about and all the stuff that we get into on here is very fucking real. And, when you've gone out there and encountered this stuff face to face, you see how real it really is. It's not a game anymore. And so you're very careful about the things that you say. And that's what's crazy, is because, you hear the things that I say and things I talk about, and it sounds extreme and it sounds, outlandish. But then you have to realize and understand that I'm not even going to be putting it out or bringing it to you unless I've checked it out and it has some moniker of being, legit. Not a lot of news tonight. We'll get through we'll get through a little bit we have that we're going to be getting into. I think we're starting a new chapter tonight for the end of days with Zechariah Sitchin. So looking forward to getting into that with you here tonight. Yeah, we didn't have any reading last night because we were just swamped with all kinds of other stuff. We got a few emails here. I mentioned Marina Oswald last night in connection to the Rockwall thing, or well, not connection to the Rockwall, but just connection to, JFK people who, in the whole Rockwall thing. You can listen to the last night's show for more details on that. But Mark says, hey, Josh, wasn't Marina Oswald not a commie, but actually part of the white Russian community with serious ties to the sovereign military order of Malta and anti-Bolshevik rebels that fled Russia after the October Revolution? Yes. One name you should look out for is George de Mohrenschildt. Yeah, George de Mohrenschildt was Knights of Malta, CIA, and he was Oswald's handler, who has very interesting connections with the Bushes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't it completely blow away the communist conspiracy altogether? Well, yeah, that's been blown apart for years. I mean, the commie conspiracy is real, but it's more like world socialism. Whereas Hitler had his National Socialism, it's those same people that set him up and gave him his ideologies and beliefs and bankrolled him to do what he did. It's those same people wanting to take world social that to a world stage and to a world level, world fascism. So yeah, all the people that were going around calling people communists are the communists. Those are the people that want to bring in that ideology. But the best thing to do is put the people out there that are actually for that and working for that ideology out there as the people that are the ones that are against it. Did you hear that story you remember, if you listened to my show, you heard this, but if you didn't, then maybe you heard it somewhere else or maybe you didn't. But a couple years ago, there was that congressman, Republican congressman, remember that? Rentboy.com, where he answered that ad for some guy with an 8-inch, perfectly sculpted 8-inch cock. That was the exact terminology used, perfectly sculpted 8-inch cock. And this congressman had the audacity to say that he had hired this guy to be his bag boy while he was on vacation in Rio or something. Oh yeah, I just happened to go look in a gay escort ads. That's where I go to find people to carry my luggage for me, the gay escort ads, yeah. And we want to specifically make sure that in order to carry those bags properly, you're going to have somebody carrying those bags that has a perfectly sculpted 8-inch cock. That's just a necessity. But the funny thing about the story is that this guy was like the head of all anti-gay groups and all anti-gay stuff in Congress on the right wing. And here he is getting his fucking, getting his manhood taken care of by a man. It's the same type of thing, man. They go around calling everybody communists. They are the communists. They go around calling everybody homosexuals. They are the homosexuals. They go around calling everybody Satanists. They are the Satanists. That is what we've been dealing with for the longest time. But that's microcosmically and macrocosmically. That's the priest class, the Jesuits, the whole structure of that. That's the scary thing nobody wants to wrap their mind around. Is that everything that we've been taught to believe is good and right is actually the evil. And getting everybody blinded to it and worshiping it under the guise of being this wonderful thing and Savior and Christianity and all this stuff is the biggest hoax that's ever been pulled on mankind. Let's see what else we have here. This is from Ben. Ben says, Josh, could you please talk about the internet? It has become unbearable. YouTube is now unwatchable. Almost all my favorite sites have been shut down. I feel assaulted by these endless acts. It's looking more like a fucking TV every day. Their tube does not care that you cannot navigate the page so long as their cars and cat food ads are streaming. Thank you for being ad-free. Sincerely, Ben. Well, yeah, I mean, that's why, that's why I have to get up here every day and tell you to donate and support our work and do all that. I don't want to have to do that, but it's the only thing that I can do to keep us from becoming like every other goddamn website and media outlet and everything that's out there. And I just refuse to do that. So I apologize if I beat you over the goddamn head with the club of donate, support our work. But folks, that's the only way we get revenue in here. And I wouldn't do it. And I fucking hate doing it. And I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to. But as Ben said here, the internet is fucking becoming almost unusable and unbearable because of ads and people trying to sell you stuff. And my God, I just could not, in good faith, folks, do this and just be another huckster of advertising and trying to sell you products. You know, I want you to come here and I want you to be comfortable. I don't want you to come here to my website and feel like, goddamn, here it is again. What's this guy trying to, like that Bill Hicks joke? You ever heard the Bill Hicks joke where he says, he's talking about that, what was his name? The guy with the bald head, not Ernest Borgnine, but I can't remember his name, but, I'm so-and-so and I'm dead now. Doing these tobacco commercials that don't smoke. And he's like, what the fuck's this guy selling? Fuck's this guy. That's how you feel. Every time you go on the internet now, it's like, oh, what the fuck's this guy selling? And I just refuse to do that. And yeah, Ben's absolutely right. And I wish, it's hard for me to get that across to people. I'm glad I actually have an opportunity here to now do that. So people understand maybe more where I'm coming from on this. Thanks for bringing that up, Ben, but he's absolutely right. And, you don't want to see my website become like all that other garbage out there where you can't even go somewhere without, I've got this little thing on one of the, I think it's where you where you go to listen at. It's a little description thing, and it's got like a O2 link in the middle of that. Well, last year around, right, it was like right after my dad died, and I got an email from this company, and they wanted to just put that little non-intrusive little hot link there with that pre-described description thing that they wrote there, and they paid me $200 for a whole year. And I really needed the money at that time. I was very broke. So I just, I allowed them to do that and put it up there. But that's as far as I've gone, or as far as I really will go with anything as far as advertising. But, and that wasn't for very much money either. I mean, believe me, in the past when I had sponsors, when I was on other radio networks, we were getting like $800 for a 12-week agreement and stuff like that, so could definitely probably charge more than that now. But I just refuse to turn it's just like I refuse to censor myself, and I refuse to not cuss and be who I am. Because, I mean, why is it that everything as far as, media or information or anything else or radio has to be so sanitized and stripped down to some, why do we have to always put on this fake, phony facade? Why do I always have to talk in a radio voice, for it to be professional? I'm going to get up here. This is the global reality. We are going to be talking about the news and the information tonight. There is crazy madness going on in the world. That's not me, man. I'm not gonna put on some phony fake news facade and get up here and do that. I'm not going to get up here and try to sell products and anything else. But if the only thing separating my work and my website from having to resort to that horrendous advertising route is you, the people out there that listen and enjoy what I do, supporting the work. Otherwise, I'm going to have to start finding, this Rockwall thing's going to require some money, some fucking money, folks. But it's going to be, it's going to be a reality because it is becoming a reality. But it's going to require some money to do it, $5,000 or something like that. So, which is not really, a lot of money. That's not a lot of money at all. Not in the fucking grand scheme of things. It's a lot of money to me, though. But my point of the matter is that in order to generate the funds for this, to do this important work, I'm going to have to get that money somewhere. So it's either going to come from the people that support my work, or it's going to come from, I'm going to have to go the advertising route, or start looking for sponsors and stuff like that. And as Ben said here, with all the internet going towards that, everything now, even apps within like the iPad, the iPhone, you have to pay $1 now, sometimes more than that, if you want to get a version of a game or an app or something like that doesn't have a fucking banner ad flashing at the bottom of it. It's fucking, it's larceny, essentially. They're swindling you into, not looking at ads. Oh, the app's free. Yeah, here you go. Free app. Take it. It's free. You get the app. at the bottom of the app flashing is some big fucking advertisement the whole time you're trying to use the app. And you're like, I don't want to see that. Yo, you don't want to see the ads? Okay, give us $1. So you pay the $1 and then you don't have any ads. I mean, it's fucking extortion. That's what it is. It's fucking extortion. So now that's becoming the new model. Heaven forbid I ever have to go that model, but if you really look at it, it's kind of the way everything's going. I mean, that may be the route I have to go eventually. I don't know, because it does make sense if you think about it. It's like, okay, here's the show, here's the website, and there's ads all over it. But if you pay $20, you can not see the website with ads, and you can listen to the radio show without commercials and all that stuff. I mean, I would never do that, but that's what they're doing. That's the way the apps work. That's the model that Apple's using. I think that the Android uses that same sort of tactic as well. I mean, it's fucking extortion, but it's legal. Here's this. It's free, but hey, it's got advertising all over it. So you're gonna, but you don't want that there. Well, give us some cash. Give us that money up front. If you're not going to give us that money from buying our products from the advertisement, then we're gonna make you pay us for it. And they've gotten their fucking grubby little advertising hands all over everything. And the fact of the matter is, fear sells. And if you're trying to sell products like Alex Jones and other many other radio networks out there, somebody was bringing up a particular show tonight in my chat room that I've been on, and how they had this guest who, and the whole night, all night on the show, where it was just Jew, anal sex, Jew. And I commented in the chat room and said, yeah, you got, and they said that they didn't bring up anything about Jesuits, no Jesuits, but all Jews and anal sex. And I said, well, got to keep those advertisers happy. Got to keep those Catholics happy. Got to keep, because all the people that got their fingers in the pie happy. So, yeah, I mean, look, 2 + 2 always equals 4, folks. When you see networks and radio shows that have sponsors and advertisers, and then coincidentally enough on those same radio networks, you hear shows that are, in your opinion, based on your research, spouting disinfo or not talking about certain topics that should be talked about. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going on there, folks. You don't have to have that big of an imagination to figure out what's going on. If you hear people spouting stuff on shows that doesn't coincide with, for a fact from your own research doesn't coincide with it, and that they're hiding stuff or they're spouting disinfo, and yet when they, when they get to a certain point, they make you sit through a commercial and then they've got ads all over their website, for a fact, folks, that's why that's going on, because money talks. And believe me, I've been in those situations on a bunch of different networks. And yes, I have been told, I will tell you this is the honest God truth. It happened to be about 3 times. There was about 3 times on a couple of different networks I was on where I was warned not to go there about certain topics because advertisers would not be happy about it and would probably start cutting money. And then I think one time actually a sponsor did drop out because of something that I said on a network. And if I was running a network with a bunch of hosts on, which I refuse to do because people just having to deal with all those different fucking people and personalities, I don't have time for that. People ask me, oh, why don't you just turn to full network? Because if I turn into a full network, then I've got to be dedicated to doing that all the time. Believe me, I saw what Mike Chambers had to do when he tried to do that, and I'm not going that route. Fuck that. You start your own thing. You do your own thing. I'm going to do mine because I'm not going to sit over here and jockey a radio network for 20 hours a day for a bunch of hosts, run a board op and for everybody's shows and all that stuff. I'm not going to do that. That's the whole thing is that these I've been told don't go there, don't talk about this. I've been told that advertisers left because of things that I've said. I mean, that's you got to make that decision though, man. What's more important to you, the truth, the conversation, the furthering of the information, or that almighty dollar? And believe me, if I didn't choose to go the route that I do, I could be making fuck tons of money doing this. The reason I don't make any money is because I do it legit. The reason I have to get up here and ask for donations is because I'm not fucking selling my information, my quest for the truth short just to get some, phony Templar notes. When somebody makes a donation to what I do and that helps me do what I'm doing, that gives me and the person satisfaction of knowing that, that came as a result of two people believing in something. So everything that I get to do, it comes because I believe in it, and it comes because the person that makes the donation believes in it too. And when those two things come together, we get results. But the less we have of that, the less results we get. And of course, on the other hand, the more money we have to operate and do it and pay the bills, and also have money to make films and stuff, we get to do more as well. But I've got to try to get fucking ground penetrating radar on this Rockwall thing, and that costs a shit ton of money. Well, I'm looking at, we may be able to have some people come out, but I've got multiple sites. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I'd rather just get my hands on the machine and do it myself. But those machines are not cheap. I've been looking. Whew. Christ, they run anywhere from like $2 or $3 grand up to like $25 grand. Like, Jesus Christ. But I can't find any prices on. I can find a lot of services and companies that will come out and do a ground penetrating radar thing for you. But there's got to be a way to build one. Anybody out there got their hands on a ground penetrating radar? I'll just put it out there into the ether, put it out there into the world of manifestation. We need ground penetrating radar. If you can provide that to me for the Rockwall film, that would be fantastic. Come forward. Send me an email, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. If you can come forward with cash to make this film happen, do that as well. I got something I want to read for you. This has been a big area of contention. It's something that's come up when I was doing the research on the wall, of the Rockwall for the film here. That's something a lot of people have asked me about, and I've referenced it in different shows I've done and different things I've done when I've talked about the Rockwall. But very interesting, because I brought up this stuff about the giant skull to John Lindsay, and he seemed to really go with the story of that this was just written under a pen name of some Canadian reporter who liked to write fanciful imagination stories. And I didn't believe that, and I still don't believe that, because of the time in which, look, folks, this was written in 1886. It was Rockwall's first newspaper, the Rockwall Success. And right after this stuff about the wall and the giants and the stuff that I'm about to read you, which is pretty unbelievable, right after this was published, the newspaper was bought out. Well, right before that, the skull disappeared from this reporter's office. And then about a week after the piece ran, the Rockwall Success newspaper got bought out, and no other further things were written about the wall. Now, the people I've talked to, the researchers, they say, oh, yeah, that's just made up stuff. But folks, in those days in 1886, believe me, well, think about what happened. Okay, let me back up. Look, in that time, 1886, what was the media that was around at that time? Print media, newspaper, right? And at that time, in 1886, the newspaper being the major media, it was a very, very powerful force. And people respected it a lot more back then than they do now. And so people were a lot more particular and very careful about what they printed, because they didn't want to cause panics and, upheavals and everything else. Because look what happened when they did the War of the Worlds thing after radio came out. H.G. Wells, they do the War of the Worlds thing, and they get everybody thinking an alien invasion's happened. Because the radio, the media at that time being radio, was so new that it still was a very powerful force. So they wouldn't have dared in 1886 ran the story that I'm about to tell you and read for you out of the newspaper, because it would have, it would have absolutely caused an uproar. And people were very serious. They took things a lot seriously back then. You didn't joke around and make wild, fantastic claims, but yet it seems like people want us to believe in the modern day that people did do that. I've seen people try to tell me that before, and I don't buy it. Because I've actually spent time talking to people, older people, and people who were around in the old days, and you know, how would a Canadian have the ability to just make up stories about the rock wall with all this detail, and then get it printed in a newspaper in Rockwall when this guy is based in Canada in 1886 with no internet, with no telephones, no telegrams, no, you know, it was fucking horse and carriage and buggy and all that shit. So I just don't buy that story, but I'm going to read it for you now. In the years since the buried rock formation of the Gay Rockwall, its name was discovered, stories and theories have swirled about over its origin. Perhaps the most intriguing and certainly the most bizarre concerns the discovery proving that a race of giants was behind the wall's construction. Even more mysterious is how the story disappeared as quickly as it came up. Consider, if you will, the case of the giant skull. On Friday, May 28th, 1886, the following article appeared in the Rockwall Success newspaper, Rockwall County's first newspaper. The greatest wonders that we have to record this week is the finding of a petrified human skull. While at work last Saturday, Ben Burton unearthed with his plow a gigantic skull fully as large as a half bushel. The staring sockets wherein the eyeballs once rolled were as large as a half-gallon cup. Some few of the jaw teeth still remained, one of them about an inch thick by 2 inches long. This goes to prove that this county was once inhabited by a race of people that would be wonderful to look at now. Dr. Wiggins thinks it is the skull of some antediluvian giant that would have weighed at least 1,000 pounds. Anyone wishing to see this mammoth skull can do so by calling at the Success office, the newspaper office, as Mr. Burton says he will leave it there for inspection. And that's written, it says it's written by someone, the name is Sam Slick. The date line was Buffalo, a small community south of Rockwall, believed now to be a part of Heath. No reports exist as to how many people actually took up the offer to view the skull at the Success office, but the buzz wasn't about to quickly fade. A week later, on June 4th, a follow-up appeared, again datelined Buffalo, entitled The Mystery Solved. The rock wall is human handiwork. Wonders will never cease. Immediately after it was generally known that Mr. J.B. Burton had found the gigantic petrified skull, a large crowd collected and set about making an examination of the surrounding ground. Spades, picks, and axes were plentiful and in use. Mr. W.R. Greer might have been seen pounding the ground with a huge hammer and intently listening after each successive blow when he was heard to call out, "This way, boys!" There was a general rush to his position. "Listen, boys," said Greer as he brought the hammer down on a heavy thump on a large flat rock. See, a large flat rock that he could hit the top of. That's a top section of the corner of the wall. And that's why, as I talked about yesterday on the show, none of the wall itself has been excavated. The only things that they've been excavating that they have told us are actually within the wall itself. And that's what they're saying. Here's it appears to be a domicile. They built their houses. These giants apparently built their houses and then built the wall around it. And so that's why there's all these big hills. I mean, there's a area in the highest elevation. It's 652 feet above sea level in Rockwall. Everything else around here drips down to like 200, 100, 300 feet. And they put a big fuck off church like right in the middle of it. Gigantic church. Now listen to this. To the astonishment of all, the hammer slipped from Greer's hand, and after a short interval, was heard to strike something below that had the clear, distinct ring of metal. Now the wildest excitement prevailed. A lantern and rope were quickly brought, and the earth was rapidly cleared away. The hole in the rock, which proved to be slate, was enlarged, and the lantern was let down into the murky darkness. At last, Messrs. Burton, Greer, and J.B. Steger volunteered to descend and explore the mystery. The cavity proved to be a chamber about 60 by 100 feet square and 40 feet from the floor to the slate roof through which they had effected an entrance. This roof was supported on pillars of black marble. whose polished sides glittered in the lamplight and made one think of the Orient. This underground palace will undoubtedly astonish the world when thoroughly explored. In one corner stands a large iron chest, supposed to be full of gold or valuables, which was so heavy as to baffle all efforts to remove it. Among other things found was a huge iron bedstead, 25 feet long, and a pair of sandals 3 feet wide by 10 inches wide, a battle axe with a pole handle 12 feet long, which weighed at least 75 pounds. The explorers extended their investigation no further, but are sure that there are other rooms connected with the one visited. The noted rock wall from which our county takes its name runs in a few yards of this place. Now listen, that guy right there said that the noted rock wall from which our county takes its name. Now that implies that this Sam Slick guy lives in this town. So this guy wrote this. This is all factual. He just took on the name Sam Slick. But what the explanation gives in this article from this Rockwall website is that Sam Slick was this satirical writer from Canada. If that's true, then why did he use the terminology our county? The noted rock wall from which our county takes its name. See, that right there debunks the idea that this was written, this is some satirical writing. No, this was real. And now they're trying to cover that up. The noted rock wall from which our county takes its name runs in a few yards of this palace. It runs within a few yards of this palace. Now, see, there you go. The noted rock wall from which our county takes its name runs in a few yards of this palace. That means that this palace is on the outside of the wall. And that's another thing I found, too. There are structures within the wall and there are structures outside of the wall as well. This, we think, settles the mystery. All surrounding circumstances go to show that this Goliath built the rock wall to enclose his vast estate. Another visit has been made, the result of which your correspondent has not yet ascertained. Readers would have to wait another week for Mr. Slick's first-hand report, but when it came on June 11th, it could not help but fire the imagination. We told you in our last that another search had been made. Your correspondent visited this wonderful subterranean palace to ascertain for himself the almost incredible facts connected with it. We arrived in time and we were invited to descend with the exploring party consisting of J.B. Steger, J.B. Greer, Jess Handley, Tom Bratcher, J.B. Burton, and Dr. Wiggins, and your correspondent. We at once began examining the walls and found on the north side a huge iron door, which yielded to our efforts assisted by a crowbar and a sledgehammer. As it swung round on its rusty hinges, its harsh grating sound was echoed and re-echoed from the cavern of darkness that lay before us. No one was a hurry to go in, as a heavy noise was heard like a slamming door, and each feared to intrude. Finally, Steger thrust his lantern forward and peered in and at least walked forward, followed by the party. Mr. Editor, I have read of unearthly buried cities and of the mysterious things found in them, but never did I dream of seeing what we saw that day. Tom Bratcher's eyes could have been snared off with a grapevine. Dr. Wiggins, Greer, Steger, and Hanley gazed in awe at what met their sight. A huge iron kettle swung near the floor. It would hold at least 1,000 gallons. And against it leaned a fork as large as a hay fork. You can better imagine our consternation when I tell you that we saw in that kettle a mass of bones and grinning, staring skulls. Dr. Wiggins touched one with his cane and it fell into dust. Now that's some detail. Even the best fiction writers in the world, folks, wouldn't have the ability to, know that he make up the fact that he touched this skull, this cane, and it turned to dust. Yeah, that's how old it was. Of course, that's exactly what would happen. There is no doubt that the ancient Goliath whose residence this was a fierce cannibal. But may I be delivered from what we encountered next. In the center of the hall, we found an iron trap door, which our combined strength at last raised, but from out of the Stygian darkness, there flapped, screaming, a huge bird with eyes like Poe's Nevermore raven. In a dismal, half-human voice, in grating screeches, the bird seemed to cry, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" It is needless to say that in a mad terror, we hastily obeyed as the bird, blinded by the light, flew from wall to wall. It could have been perhaps a large bat. We quickly reached the platform, whence we were hastily drawn to the open air. Stair, Greer, and Bratcher fainted, and Dr. Wiggins was so unnerved that he could do nothing for them. They were resuscitated by throwing cold water into their faces. Bratcher said that he would not have fainted if he had not been for the fact that when they opened the trapdoor, he smelled something like yarn socks. Here is where the narrative ends, for on June 18th, just 1 week later, the Rockwall Success newspaper was sold to new owners, and no further stories of the skull or the underground chambers appeared. It seems at this point that the story just died. Why would a discovery of such obvious magnitude just vanish from the media without a trace? Skeptics say look no further than the author of the pieces, one Sam Slick. They point to a fictional character of that name invented by a Canadian author some 50 years before. Sam Slick of Slicksville, who wrote satirical commentary about the inhabitants of rural Nova Scotia. Slick was the creation of Thomas Chandler Halliburton. Oh, it's just a coincidence that guy's last name was Halliburton. A local judge and popular author who used the character as a pen name in a series of columns published in the Nova Scotian newspaper. No record of an actual Sam Slick living in Rockwall at the time has yet been found. Well, he was using a pen name. More interesting and much more fun to speculate on are the conspiracy theories which grew from the incident. Some say that the giant skull was spirited away by the Smithsonian and hidden away so as not to have any disruptive influence against the prevalent academic theory. Some argued that it was swept under the rug because of the existence of giants proved that various biblical stories were correct, which irked atheistic scientists to no end. Oh, my God. Folks, my information, the stuff that I just uncovered and I just figured out that I told you about last night, my God, look, science and religion are one and the same. The priest class that controls religion also controls science. Do you know who owns the world's largest telescope? The Vatican. Do you know they have a telescope called the Lucifer? Folks, the scientific community is basing their scientific opinion on flawed data. They have not they have not actually examined a section of the wall. They've examined what they've been told was a section of the wall because they didn't have Landsat images when this occurred. But now that we have the readouts of where this thing is, we know for a fact they have not excavated any part of the wall, so the scientific findings are flawed. Now, who would have the power to do that? Religion. By keeping the science right where it wants it, it keeps the religion right where they want it. And that's why nobody wants to touch this stuff. So absolutely, I mean, that's exactly why it was swept under the rug, so that it wouldn't prove the biblical stories are correct, and it wouldn't, it wouldn't change the prevalent academic theory. That's it. And guess what? That's what I want to do. That's why I want to bring this out. I want to fuck science up. I want to fuck religion up. And guess what? This does it. Others insisted that the cover-up was instigated by religious interests and it was contravened the true teachings of the Christian church. Whatever explanation you believe, one thing is indisputable. We love controversy, especially that of conspiratorial kind. In upcoming articles, Planet Rockwall will present more stories for our namesake wall, blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, I'm going to blow their nuts off too. But anyway, it's a good article. And at the bottom of it, there's a video there that not only shows a bunch of... I was blown away of how many news articles there are in this little video that show reports of giant bones being found all over the place. And I wasn't aware until I did some research on it that people believe that the people who built the serpent mounds and the mound builders and stuff in like Ohio were giants. And that's interesting because that's basically what all the areas out here in Rockwall are. They're mounds. They built the courthouse and a lot of the downtown stuff on these mounds. I mean, it's just, it's mind-blowing stuff. So, yeah, I'm glad I got to read that for you. I wanted to read that for you tonight. My website, theglobalreality.com, is where we're broadcasting from. We're going to take a break, come back, and we'll get into the news we have to get into, which is not a lot. And then we'll start reading out of Zachariah Sitchin's The End of Days. Thanks so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. This is The Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. With me, your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us here tonight for, yes, another late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. Thanks for staying up with us. And we've got some news to get into in this section of the broadcast. We're also going to be reading from The End of Days tonight in our continued series of reading. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. It's TheGlobalReality.com. That's where you can get your copy of The Secret Right Volume 2. If you're a new listener and you just listened to my Red Ice interview, welcome, first off. And also, second off, one thing I didn't really get a chance to mention on that show was that the entire film, The Secret Right Volume 2, is not online. Now, all my other films are online already, but The Secret Right Volume 2 in its entirety is not online yet because, well, we, you know, other than just like basically the pre-orders and stuff, I'm just waiting until we, you know, sell more copies than we've sold to put it out there. So be sure and go to the website, theglobalreality.com, and get a copy on Blu-ray or DVD. If you haven't received yours yet, please be patient. It is on its way. I understand that, you know, some people expect it to be there in a week or 2 weeks, and sometimes it's not. So just be patient. We're going to get into the news right now, tonight. And also, again, please support our work at the website. We have a chip-in banner there that's for the bills for the month. We also have another chip-in banner there that's for our budget for the Rockwall film, and we need help on both of those. So thank you so much to everybody who already has helped us out. And please help us out if you can. There you go. Missouri 4.0 earthquake felt in 13 states. A little action going on the New Madrid fault line here, folks. I still think that, you know, we're going to see a big one on the New Madrid. I still think I think we're going to see it sooner rather than later. Magnitude 4.0. I think these are, and they're having, I mean, I think these are pre-shocks is what I think they are. Same thing going on in California right now. A magnitude 4.0 earthquake struck early Tuesday in the southeast corner of Missouri, waking up residents in as many as 12 other surrounding states. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake hit at 3:58 a.m. local time. The epicenter was located a shallow 3.1 miles underground, about 150 miles south of St. Louis, near the New Madrid fault line. Hundreds reported feeling the quake in Missouri, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, with the most significant shaking occurring in Sikeston, a small city about 9 miles away from the epicenter. Outside of Missouri, the trembler was felt in Illinois, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Indiana. Residents also reported feeling the ground shake in Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Kansas, and Oklahoma. That's pretty widespread. That's on a massive fault. It means it's affecting the other faults around it, folks. That's not good. Save for a few reports of items falling off shelves and windows cracking, the rumbling caused no real damage. But experts say it serves as an important reminder of how earthquakes in the eastern part of the U.S., though they occur more rarely, have the potential to cause damage. Yeah. Well, that's why I think they've set up the separate capitals, you know. Denver is a capital. Yeah, it's because that thing fucking goes off, man. You're going to see the Great Lakes are going to spill into the fucking Mississippi River, and you're going to have a big section of the middle of the United States is just going to plunge into the fucking depths of the earth. And you're just going to have a big, gigantic crater lake in the middle of the country. It's going to split the country right in two. It's going to be insane. Let's see what else we have. Man who pointed this, so one of our listeners sent me this. Yeah, I had already seen this, but yes, thank you, listener, for sending me this, because this is fucking indeed funny as hell. Man who pointed loaded gun at woman told police he was the director of the CIA, Elvis Presley's brother, and a half-ape who needed monkey blood. Nazi lesbian hookers abducted by UFOs and forced into weight loss programs. It's unbelievable. You know what? Hey, what if he's telling the truth? That'd be even more fucked up. Wouldn't surprise me. What do you? I mean, my God, look at everything else we have. Look at all the other information. I mean, look at this poor guy. I know it's easy to call him a crank and a nut and everything else, but what if he's not a nut? What if he's telling the truth? Stranger things have happened. A 51-year-old man told police he was Elvis Presley's half-brother and the head of the CID, I think it's supposed to be CIA, when they arrested him for pointing a gun at a woman outside a bank. Mark Lochester from Naples is accused of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon after an incident on Friday outside a Wells Fargo bank. He told deputies he was a half orangutan and needed to call the Fusion Center to ask about his monkey blood. Reports say Lochester's comments were very off the wall and that it did not appear as if he was all there mentally. Collier County Sheriff's Department said that they were called to the bank around 5 p.m. after Lochester allegedly pulled a fully loaded .357 Magnum on a woman who went over to his car to tell him there was smoke coming from it. He told authorities she was fearful of her life and backed away and returned to the bank. When they arrived, he was still sitting in the driver's seat. A woman who was said to be his girlfriend was in the passenger seat. She was permitted to leave. Locher is also said to have also told police he was a good friend of President Bush and that the two share an attorney as well as the claims about Elvis and the CIA. Elvis did have a twin brother, but he died at birth. The real CIA director is General David H. Petraeus. A gun and bullets were found in the car, and he was taken to jail. No credentials could be found which linked him to the CIA. Lochester was taken to the hospital after complaints of high blood pressure, but was released and transported to the Naples Jail Center, where he's being held in the medical ward reserved for inmates with apparent medical and mental problems. So, again, what if he's some mind control victim or something? It wouldn't surprise me. Speaking of mind control, you seen this? Everybody's up in arms about these Satan comments that Santorum is saying. But he said something very interesting in all this Satan rant that he went on. He's saying that Satan has its sights on the United States of America. Satan is attacking the great institutions of America. Yeah, you and your buddies. You are Satan, motherfucker. You and you priest class cocksuckers.
Suck Satan's cock, Rick Santorum. Oh, yeah, send in Rick. Yeah, Rick's one of my favorite customers. Yes, come on in, Rick. Oh, it's very good to see you. Yeah, we got you some votes since last time, huh? Yeah, well, that's what my power does, You come in here, you come in my office, you suck Satan's cock, and, I get you the votes. We can rig that. We can take care of Ron Paul for you and make sure he doesn't do anything bad. And we can make sure you get the majority of the vote. I mean, hell, me being Satan, I'm great friends with everybody. I mean, shit. Everybody hangs out with me. Dave Mustaine, got that motherfucker in my left pocket. I mean, that's why, he's coming out and supporting you now, Rick. Dave Mustaine, he loves Satan and he loves Rick Santorum. I mean, we go hand in hand, so what do you expect? But all you gotta do, Rick, if you want to win, or Ron Paul or anybody else, it's all a matter of who's going to suck Satan's cock the best. And it's a close race right now. Let me tell you what. It's a close race, baby. It really is, because Mitt Romney, he's a hell of a cocksucker. Oh, yeah. He's a hell of a cocksucker. And Rick Santorum's not far behind him. Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty damn good. Ron Paul, he's all right. The last thing you want to hear is somebody going off about the Constitution and free money, money that's solid and constitutional rights. Jesus Christ. That's the last thing you want to fucking hear when somebody's got their dick in your mouth. So he's just not doing it for me. But Rick Santorum and Romney, they're doing a fantastic job. Obama's still doing the best, though. Gotta say. Nobody's beat Obama yet. He's the best sucker of Satan's cock that I've personally seen. So we're sticking with old Obama for right now. Yeah. I really miss Gums, though. Gums was my favorite. Oh, I'm sorry. You wouldn't know Gums. Gums is actually Bush, but, we call him Gums. Strip the chrome off a trailer hitch, I tell you what. All right, peace, I'm out. Burn in hell, motherfuckers.
Oh, God. Now that I got my show back from Satan, thank you very much. But no, he closes his statements about Satan, Rick Santorum, with saying, We look at the shape of mainline Protestantism in this country, and it is in shambles. It is gone from the world of Christianity as I see it. So, you defending Protestantism there now, huh, Rick? When everything, I mean, that's interesting. Why does a dyed-in-the-wool Zionist start fucking, preaching about Protestantism? That's just, that guy didn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He's confused, man. He's got dementia. We just take him to the glue factory. This is unbelievable stuff here. And for New Hampshire is supposed to be the live free or die state. And I mean, from the sound of this, it sounds like the puss out or die state. I mean, I thought they were supposed to be all about the First Amendment up there, all Second Amendment, and all about the Bill of Rights and all about weapons and everything else. I thought that was a live free or die state up there. New Hampshire man arrested for firing a gun into the ground while catching a suspected burglar. This guy gets his house broken into by a fucking drug fiend, catches said drug fiend and burglar coming out of his neighbor's house after he already found out his house had been broken into. This is a grandpa, by the way. This is a 61-year-old single grandfather with no criminal record, with a bunch of grandkids on his family farm that's been passed down from generations to him. He catches a burglar who just broke into his house, coming out of his neighbor's house, and he fires around at the ground, not trying to hit the guy, but just trying to scare him to get him to stop. Till the police get there, fires around the ground, and he gets the guy to stop. Nobody gets hurt, nobody gets shot, nobody gets tasered, nobody gets pepper sprayed, nothing. Nobody gets beat with a fucking billy club. So he catches the burglar, he calls the cops get there, and guess what the cops do? The cops arrest him, a 61-year-old single grandfather, and not only do they arrest him for firing his gun, they go in his house and take all of his guns, his whole family collection. Boy, the live free or die state? I mean, you motherfuckers, listen, man, I'm not trying to play this north-south card bullshit here, I am a Southerner, I am proud of that, but I'm not trying to play that card. But listen, you Northerners have given us a lot of shit because you actually believe the hype and the bullshit that George Bush and the Bush family is from Texas and that they're real Texans and that all Texans are like the Bushes. You know what? Fuck you. You want to give us all this shit, but you motherfuckers are sitting up there up in the north with, calling yourselves a live free or die straight. You know what? At least down here in Texas, if somebody, what happens if somebody comes on your property down here in Texas? You know what? You have the legal right to kill them. In a live free or die state, you can't even be a hero and not even hurt anybody, or you're going to jail and you're going to have all your guns taken. We don't call ourselves a live free or die state in here. We're the Lone Star State, and that's it. But guess what? Somebody comes on your property down here, you can kill the motherfucker. And that's the way it ought to be. I'm all for that. Call me what you want. Call me a hick, a hillbilly. I don't care. Man comes on your property, man, that's not supposed to be there, you can have the right to kill him. Period. End of story. Kill him dead and let God sort him out, and that's how it should be. A New Hampshire man who fired his handgun into the ground to scare an alleged burglar he caught crawling out of his neighbor's window is now facing a felony charge and the same potential prison sentence as the man that he stopped. Dennis Fleming, 61, of Farmington, New Hampshire, was arrested for reckless conduct after the Saturday incident at his 19th century farmhouse. The single grandfather had returned home to find that his home had been burglarized and spotted Joseph Hebert, 27, climbing out of a window at a neighbor's home. Fleming said he yelled "freeze" before firing his gun into the ground, and then he held Hebert at gunpoint until police arrived. I don't think I could have handled this guy physically, so I fired into the ground, Fleming told FoxNews.com. He stopped. He knew I was serious. I was angry, and I was worried that this guy was going to come after me. No one was injured in the incident, but when the police arrived, they made 2 arrests. Herbert was charged with 2 counts of burglary and drug possession. He faces up to 7 years in prison if convicted. Fleming, meanwhile, is scheduled to be arraigned on March 20th on a charge of reckless conduct, which could potentially land him a sentence similar to the one Herbert faces. I didn't know it was illegal to fire in the ground, but I had to make that guy realize I was serious, Fleming said. I've got a clean record, and I really don't want to be convicted. I mean, this is an atrocity, folks. I mean, you know, if we're going to sit idly by in this country and let this kind of stuff happen, then I'm done trying to. I mean, it's a lost cause, is all I'm saying. I mean, if this guy gets convicted, folks, really, are we really going to allow this to happen? No, really. County Attorney Tom Villari told Foster's Daily Democrat he will review the case and determine if the charge against Fleming is appropriate under the state statutes regarding self-defense and defense of property. Fleming, meanwhile, is hoping to catch a break. I've got 14 grandchildren. I don't want to be a felon and go to jail. I'm kind of wound up about it. Yeah, I imagine you would be kind of wound up about it. You'd be kind of wound up about them coming in and taking all your guns. I mean, it's unbelievable. Man, oh man, oh man. Well, we've talked a million times here about Google is the NSA. I don't know how to make people understand that. Google is bypassing the privacy settings of Internet Explorer, claims Microsoft. Oh, look at Microsoft trying to play all the innocent card. Give me a break. Microsoft's been working with the NSA for years as well as Google has. Google is the NSA. So Microsoft trying to claim, oh, Google's bypassing our privacy settings on Internet Explorer, blah, blah, blah. They're hacking. Oh, come on. It's designed for them to be able to do it, you dimwits. Terror bomb detonated in space could cripple Britain's electronic networks and jeopardize national security. So it's nice to see that in you guys in the UK and Britain aren't the only ones that you all guys get propagandized with, you know, terror threats just like we do. But I heard New World Order Gingrich a few years ago touting this same line, saying that Iran could detonate a EMP and over the United States and knock out all of our, you know, electricity and all this stuff. Well, now it seems that they're touting this. Maybe that's what they're going to do. Maybe this is the false flag everybody's been talking about, you know, dropping an EMP over Britain or something. Rogue states and terror groups could launch nuclear attacks in space to cripple Britain's electronic networks and jeopardize national security, a report warns today. Weapons detonated up to 500 miles above the Earth would generate a massive electromagnetic pulse, knocking out satellites' radar in the national grid with devastating results. Key military installations, transport systems, power and water supplies would be hit, wreaking havoc, claims the Common Defense Select Committee. Well, look, let me tell you something right now. Folks, they've got Star Wars weapons. I mean, they've got the stuff they've got now makes the stuff they had during the Reagan era look like fucking Tinker Toys. Okay? They got space-based weapons, active denial systems. They got everything. If there is ever a missile or a nuke or an EMP or anything that hits anywhere, the United States, Britain, any of those places, folks, it's only because they allowed it to happen, just like 9/11. Because they have all kinds of strategic defense against all of that stuff. And, but, you know, saying that the claim, most people don't know that. You launch that kind of attack, you can claim that Iran did it, and boom, everybody would want to attack. Of course, nobody would hear about it because everything would be knocked out anyway, so it wouldn't matter, right? Let's see what else we have. Osteoporosis drugs delivered wirelessly from Science News. An implanted microchip that releases medication on command from wireless signals has been demonstrated in people for the first time using a drug for osteoporosis. This skin device implanted under the skin could be useful in treating many diseases that require taking medication regularly. Science reported February 16th at the annual meeting of the American Association of the Advancement of Science. This opens up profound possibilities for improving the treatment of patients and the potential for telemedicine. Oh, yeah, just put the microchip in there. Put all the drugs in there. You can control it wirelessly. Yeah, that's what we want. You know, it's like the fucking heart plugs in fucking In Dune, that's what it sounds like to me, you know? And they made everybody in Dune get fitted with the heart plugs. That way somebody can just walk up to you and go and pull your fucking heart plug out and all your blood comes out and you die. Same thing here, you know? They put the chip inside of you and then somebody hacks your the frequency and then they can make it, the chip inside of you flood your body and kill you instantly. I mean, I don't have to tell you folks the 17,000 different ways this is fucking wrong. Well, this is very interesting. We talked about crystals, and crystals are a very powerful thing, and they're used in all of our technology, and they've been used for time immemorial as in technology. And crystals have been record keepers and data holders for longer than there's been, way longer, millennia longer than there's been digital technology. Crystals may be possible in time as well as space. Theory proposes objects in their lowest energy state can loop in the fourth dimension forever. What sounds like the title of a bad fantasy movie, time crystals, could be the next big thing in theoretical physics. In two newspapers, Nobel Prize-winning physicist Frank Wilczek lays out the mathematics of how an object moving in its lowest energy state could experience a sort of structure in time, such as a time crystal that would be the temporal equivalent of an everyday crystal in which atoms occupy positions that repeat periodically in space. The work, done partly with physicist Alfred Shapiro of the University of Kentucky, appeared February 12th on rxviv.org. We don't know whether such things do exist in nature, but the surprise is that they can exist. Scientists don't know how important time crystals may turn out to be or whether they have any practical application at all. But Wilczek of MIT says the concept reminds him of the excitement he felt when he helped describe a new class of fundamental particles called anyons in the early 1980s. I had very much the same kind of feeling as I'm having here, he says, that I found a new logical possibility for how matter might behave that opened up a new world with many possible directions. Wilczek dreamed up time crystals after teaching a class about classifying crystals in 3 dimensions and wondering why that structure couldn't extend to the 4th dimension, time. To visualize a time crystal, think of Earth looping back to its same location in space every 365 and a quarter days. The planet repeats itself periodically as it moves through time, but a true time crystal is made not of a planet, but of an object in its lowest energy state, like an electron stripped of all possible energy. The object could endlessly loop in time, just as electrons in a superconductor could theoretically flow through space for all eternity. It's doing what it wants to do, and what it wants to do is move, says Wilczek. In a sense, the time crystal would be a perpetual motion machine. If scientists could build one in a lab, it would run forever, yet it wouldn't violate the second law of thermodynamics because the crystal would be in its lowest energy state. No useful energy could be extracted from it. Wilczek is already dreaming of extending the time crystal concept into imaginary time, a theoretical concept of the 4th dimension that runs in a different direction other than the one people experience. I don't know if this will be a lasting value at all, but I'm having fun. Yeah, so that's definitely interesting stuff there. Lots from this Science News today. I'm going to put that osteoporosis wireless drug one in there too for you. Little Ice Age began with a bang. Frozen moss suggests that climate cooling kicked off fast, possibly with help from volcanoes. The Little Ice Age, a centuries-long spell of cold summers in Europe and elsewhere, began suddenly late in the 13th century. A new study finds a string of volcanic explosions may have set off this change in climate by belching particles that reflected sunlight and allowed the Arctic sea ice to reach epic proportions. And yeah, that's going. That appears to be what's happening now. As we're not heading toward the climate. We're not getting warmer. We're heading towards another small ice age, mini ice age. In a technical tour de force, physicists have spotted long-sought low-energy neutrinos zipping from the sun. The discovery confirms one of the first possible steps in the fusion cycle that helps power the star. See, now they're figuring out how the sun is powered. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? You know, because people have talked about the Lucifer Project and all that stuff for years. Like, you know, you ever seen that movie 2010, The Year We Make Contact? It's the sequel to 2001, A Space Odyssey. If you've never seen it, you definitely should watch it, especially now. It's 2012. It's a good time to watch that movie. You know, even though it's supposed to be 2010, the year we make contact, what's interesting about it is that the spaceship with Hal, you know, it's around Jupiter where they go back out to find it. And essentially, the monolith starts turning Jupiter into a star. And so then it appears that there are two suns in our galaxy. And there are people that have theorized that our sun is dying out and that they're trying to scientifically find ways to, that's what CERN and all this stuff is supposedly is about. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but that's why they're doing CERN and they're looking for these neutrinos, because they believe they can basically kickstart the sun and restart it by starting these fusion reactions by figuring out how it makes fuel. Where apparently, according to this article here, proposed type of solar neutrino spotted, that's what they've done. The newfound particles are produced when two protons and an electron interact to make deuterium, a heavy form of hydrogen that helps feed the sun's fusion. About 1 in 4 deuterium atoms in the sun are made in this proton-electron-proton, or PEP reaction. Scientists can probe the sun's inner workings by studying the particles produced in its thermonuclear reactions, in particular the neutrinos that flood through the Earth in great numbers but hardly interact with matter here. Researchers must build detectors underground to screen out those elusive solar neutrinos from other particle chatter. So, yeah, I mean, they're getting down to it now, aren't they? Is it Saturn that turns into the star in the book? Oh, okay, that's interesting. Maybe it was Saturn in the movie. Maybe I said Jupiter. I was pretty sure it was Jupiter in the movie, though. Or it was Europa or something like that. Maybe it was Europa. I can't remember. Maybe it was Europa. I can't, because it said something like, you know, don't come here or something like that. All the other moons you can explore or something like that. All right. Well, I think that's all I got. Let me go back through here and make sure I got through everything. Yeah, that's about all I got as far as news, I think. Yeah, not a lot tonight. Well. I am going to take a break, come back, and when we come back, we'll start reading in a new chapter. I think we're starting a new chapter now. I have to see. Either way, we're going to continue reading from the End of Days with Zachariah. Tick, 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 tick. All right, back here with you on the Global Reality. Right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. And yeah, when I went to the break a minute ago, there was no pun intended there. No disrespect to the late Ronnie James Dio. I went out to the break. No, I really wasn't a joke. I just said that. I didn't really mean to. It wasn't trying to imply anything. But yeah, I said, well, we'll take it out with a little Dio. Yeah, the mighty midget was pretty small, but he had the gigantic voice there. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. Thanks for being with us here tonight for the broadcast. We're going to continue reading from the End of Days from Zachariah Sitchin for you right now, and we're picking back up where we left off last time. Among the purely astronomical texts translated and undoubtedly carefully studied were guidelines for observing Nibiru's arrival and for recognizing it on its appearance. A Babylonian text that retained the original Sumerian terminology stated, "Planet of the god Marduk, upon its appearance, Shu-Pa-A, rising 30 degrees, Sag-Me-Nig, when it stands in the middle of the sky, Nibiru." While the first named planet, Shul-Pa-A, is deemed to be Jupiter, but could be Saturn. I'm sorry, that's just a strange coincidence. Before the break, I was talking about 2010 A Space Odyssey, and somebody in the chat room said that in the book, the planet they turned into a sun was actually Saturn, and in the movie, it was Jupiter. So isn't that interesting there in that Sumerian script? It says, planet of the god Marduk, upon its appearance, Shul-Pa-A, rising 30 degrees, Sag-Me-Nig, when it stands in the middle of the sky, Nibiru. So it says that the first planet that it names there is deemed to be Jupiter, but could be Saturn. That's highly synchronistic, don't you think? Well, the first named planet, Shul-Pa-A, is deemed to be Jupiter, but could be Saturn. The next one's name, Sag-Me-Nig, could just be a variant for Jupiter, but is considered by some to be Mercury. A similar text from Nippur, rendering the Sumerian planetary names as Uman-Pa-Udu and Sag-Me-Gar, suggested that the arrival of Nibiru will be announced by the planet Saturn, and after rising 30 degrees will be near Jupiter. Other texts, a tablet from the Sumerian times shown as tablet K-3124, state that after passing Shul-Pa-A and Sag-Me-Gar, which I believe to be Saturn and Jupiter, planet Marduk will enter the sun, i.e. reach perigee closest to the sun and become Nibiru. Other texts provide clearer clues in regard to Nibiru's path, as well as to the time frame for its appearance. From the station of Jupiter, the planet passes toward the west. From the station of Jupiter, the planet increases its brilliance, and in the zodiac of Cancer will become Nibiru. The great planet, in his appearance, dark red. The heaven he divides in half as it stands in Nibiru. Taken together, the astronomical texts from the time of the Ashurbanipal described a planet appearing from the solar system's edge, rising and becoming visible when it reaches Jupiter or even Saturn before that, and then curving down toward the ecliptic. At its perigee, when it is closest to the sun and thus to Earth, the planet at the crossing becomes Nibiru in the zodiac of Cancer. That, as the enclosed schematic and not to scale diagram shows, could happen only when sunrise on the day of the spring equinox took place in the age of the Ram. During the zodiacal age of Aries, such clues regarding the orbital path of the celestial lord and its reappearance, sometimes using the constellations as a celestial map, are found in biblical passages, thereby revealing knowledge that must have been internationally available. In Jupiter will thy face be seen, states Psalm 17. The Lord from the south shall come. His shining splendor will beam as light, predicted the prophet Habakkuk. Alone he stretches out the heavens and treads upon the highest deep. He arrives at the great bear, Sirius, and Orion, and the constellations of the south. The book of Job stated that the prophet Amos foresaw the celestial Lord, smiling his face upon Taurus and Aries. From Taurus to Sagittarius he shall go. These verses described a planet that spans the highest heavens and orbiting clockwise retrograde. Astronomers say it arrives via the southern constellations. It is a trajectory on a vaster scale akin to that of Halley's Comet. A telling clue in regard to Ashurbanipal's expectations was the meticulous rendering into Akkadian of Sumerian descriptions of the ceremonies attending the state visit of Anu and Antu to Earth circa 4000 BCE. The sections dealing with their stay in Uruk described how at eve time, an observer was stationed on the topmost stage of the tower to watch for and announce the appearance of the planets one after the other until the planet of the great Anu of heaven came into view, whereupon all the gods assembled to welcome the divine couple recited the composition. To the one who grows bright, the heavenly planet of the god Anu, and sang the hymn, The Creator's Image Has Arisen. The long text then described the ceremonial meals, the retreat to the nighttime chambers, the processions of the next day, and so on. One can reasonably conclude that Ashurbanipal was engaged in collecting, collating, translating, and studying all the earlier texts that could A, provide guidance to the astronomer priest for detecting at the first possible moment the returning of Nibiru. Well, that's interesting now, isn't it? Now, I personally don't really believe in this Nibiru thing as a planet, but isn't that interesting that even back in those days, the astronomer priests had studied these texts so that they could detect the very moment that Nibiru would return. Well, like I mentioned earlier, again, synchronistically, who owns the biggest telescopes in the world? The Vatican, the priests. They've got the Lucifer telescope. So could that be indeed why? I mean, they're saying they want to be the first to find out when it's coming, you see. That's interesting. That is very interesting, isn't it? So by that rationale, that would mean that the priests would be the first, let's just say Nibiru was, let's just say theoretically it was real. Well, the priests of our modern day with their powerful Lucifer telescopes would be able to detect that first, right? That would give them ample opportunity to be able to use their mouthpieces and their gatekeepers within mainstream media, alternative media, and the rest of it to spread disinformation or propaganda or misinformation or anything else regarding Nibiru. That's very interesting. Very, very interesting point there to point out that, it's these astronomer priests that were put in charge of detecting at the first possible moment the returning of Nibiru, and B, inform the king about the procedures for what to do next. Calling the planet of the heavenly throne is an important clue to the royal expectations, as were the depictions on palace walls in magnificent reliefs of Assyrian kings greeting the god in the winged disc as it hovered above the tree of life. Somebody in the chat room says, I wonder if Nibiru is kind of like the Death Star or some shit. No, I mean, that's valid. I would say that's a reason. I mean, I can't argue with that. I mean, that's kind of what I've thought. Because it seemed to me it's more like a ship than a planet, but at the same time, it's very possible that, I mean, come on, look at everything else that George Lucas has in those Star Wars films. From Yoda, correlating with Yota, a demon, to Darth Vader being as in the Vedas, the Vedic texts, the code with the Jedis, the bloodline thing. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff through all of the Star Wars things. So, you know what? Another interesting thing is that George Lucas absolutely believes that something's happening on December 21st of this year. So, no, I would say that's as valid as an argument. I would say that, because, a planet, a spaceship the size of a planet, it's something, a ship so massive that's essentially like a planet, because, again, it talks about it being, Nibiru being Marduk being the only thing that dwells there. And, something of that size, you could probably affect gravity and affect orbits and everything else, sure. That big? I mean, look at what the Death Star did. That's a good point. It's definitely something to think about. It was important to be informed of the planet's appearance as soon as possible in order to be able to prepare the proper reception for the arrival of the great god depicted within it, Anu himself, and be blessed with long, perhaps even eternal life. But that was not destined to be. Soon after Ashurbanipal's death, rebellions broke out throughout the Assyrian Empire. His sons, hold on, Egypt, Babylonia, and Elam disintegrated. Newcomers from afar appeared on the borders of the Assyrian Empire, hordes from the north, Medes from the east. Everywhere, local kings seized control and declared independence. Of particular importance, immediate and for future events, was Babylon's decoupling of the dual kingship with Assyria. As a part of the New Year festival in 626 BCE, a Babylonian general whose name Nabopolassar, Nabu his son protects, implied that he claimed to be a son of the god Nabu and was enthroned. And Nabu, by the way, is one of these gods. Nabu is actually a planet in Star Wars. Again, I don't think that's a coincidence either. I mean, it's just, connection after connection there to Star Wars. It implied that he claimed to be a son of the god Nabu and was enthroned as a king of an independent Babylonian. A tablet described the start of his investiture ceremony thus: the princes of the land were assembled. They blessed Nabopolassar, opening their fists. They declared him sovereign. Marduk in the assembly of the gods gave the standard of power to Nabopolassar. The resentment of Assyria's brutal rule was so great that Nabopolassar of Babylon soon found allies for military action against Assyria. A principal and freshly vigorous ally was the Medes, the precursor of the Persians, who had experienced Assyrian incursions and brutality. While Babylonian troops were advancing into Assyria from the south, the Medes attacked from the east, and in 614 BCE, had been prophesied by the Hebrew prophets, captured and burned down Assyria's religious capital, Ashur. The turn of Nineveh, the royal capital, came next. By 612 BCE, the great Assyria was in shambles. Assyria, the land of the first archaeologist itself, became a land of archaeological sites. How could that happen to the land whose very name meant land of the god Asher? The only explanation at the time was that the gods withdrew their protection from that land. In fact, we shall show that there was much more to it. The gods themselves withdrew from that land and from earth itself. And then the most astounding and final chapter of the Return saga, in which Haran was to play a key role, began to unfold. I love how Haran sounds like Iran, and Assyria sounds like Syria. And that's what we hear about constantly in the news, you know. Iran, Syria, nukes, nukes, nukes. The amazing chain of events after the demise of Assyria began with the escape to Haran of members of Assyria's royal family. Seeking there the protection of the god Sin, the escapes rallied the remnants of the Assyrian army and proclaimed one of the royal refugees as king of Assyria, but the god whose city Haran has been since the days of yore did not respond. In 610 BCE, Babylonian troops captured Haran and put an end to the Assyrians' lingering hopes. The contest for the mantle of successorship to the heritage of Samir and Akkad was over. It was now worn solely and with divine blessing by the king in Babylon. Again, Babylon ruled the lands that were once the hallowed, Samir and Akkad, so much so that in many texts from that time, Nabopolassar was given the title of the king of Akkad. He used that authority to extend the celestial observations to the erstwhile Sumerian cities of Nippur and Uruk, and some of the key observational texts from the subsequent crucial years come from there. It was in that same fateful year, 610 BCE, a memorable year of astounding events, as we shall see, that a reinvigorated Egypt also placed on its throne an assertive strongman named Necho. Just 1 year later, one of the least understood by historians, that is, geopolitical moves took place. The Egyptians, who used to be on the same side as the Babylonians in opposition to Assyrian rule, emerged from Egypt and rushing northward overran territories and sacred sites that the Babylonians considered theirs. The Egyptian advance all the way north to Carchemish put them within striking distance of Haran. It also placed in Egypt's hands the two space-related sites in Lebanon and in Judea. The surprised Babylonians were not going to let it stand. The aging Nabopolassar entrusted the task of recapturing the vital places to his son Nebuchadnezzar, who had already distinguished himself on the battlefields. In June 605 BCE at Carchemish, the Babylonians crushed the Egyptian army, liberated the sacred forest in Lebanon, which Nabu and Marduk desired, and chased the fleeing Egyptians all the way to the Sinai Peninsula. Nebuchadnezzar stopped the pursuit only on news from Babylon that his father had died. He rushed back and was proclaimed king of Babylon that same year. Historians find no explanation for the sudden Egyptian thrust into the ferocity of the Babylonian reaction. To us, it is evident that at the core of the events was the expectation of the return. Indeed, it seems that in that year, 605 BCE, the return was deemed to be imminent. perhaps even overdue, for it was in that very same year that the prophet Habakkuk began to prophesy in the name Yahweh in Jerusalem. Uncannily foretelling the future of Babylon and other nations, the prophet asked Yahweh when the day of the Lord, a day of judgment upon the nations, Babylon included, would come. Yahweh responded, saying, "Write down the prophecy. Explain it clearly on the tablet, so that it may be quickly read. For the vision there is a set time. In the end it shall come without fail. Though it may tarry, wait for it will surely come. For its appointed time will not be delayed." Habakkuk 2-2-3. The appointed time, as we shall see, arrive precisely 50 years thereafter. The 43 years of Nebuchadnezzar's reign are considered a period of dominant Neo-Babylonian empire, a period marked by decisive actions and fast moves, for there was no time to lose. The nearing return was now Babylon's prize. To prepare Babylon for the expected return, massive renovation and construction works were quickly undertaken. Their focal point was the sacred precinct where the Esagial temple of Marduk, now simply called Baal, that's what Baalbek was in Lebanon, got its name from. It was now renovated and rebuilt, its seven-stage ziggurat readied for viewing the starry skies, just as had been done in Uruk when Anu had visited circa 4000 BCE. A new processional way leading to the sacred precinct through a massive new gate was erected. The walls were decorated and covered from top to bottom with artful glazed bricks that astound to this day, for the site's modern excavators have removed and put the processional way and the gate back together at the Vorensaschitz Museum in Berlin. Babylon, Marduk's eternal city, was ready to welcome the return. "I have made the city of Babylon to be the foremost among all the countries in every habitation. Its name I elevated to be the most praised of all the sacred cities," Nebuchadnezzar wrote in his inscriptions. The expectation, it seems, was that the arriving god of the winged disc would come down at the landing place in Lebanon, then consummate the return by entering Babylon through the new marvelous processional way and imposing gate. A gate named Ishtar, or also known as Inanna, who had been Anu's beloved in Uruk, another clue regarding whose return was expected. Accompanying these expectations was Babylon's role as the new navel of the earth, inheriting the pre-diluvial status of Nippur as the Duran key, the bond of heaven and earth, or where the Stargate was located. That this was now Babylon's function was expressed by giving the ziggurat's foundation. By giving the ziggurat's foundation platform the Sumerian name Etem Anki, the temple of the foundation for heaven and earth, stressing Babylon's role as the new navel of the earth, a role clearly depicted in the Babylonian map of the world. This was terminology that echoed the description of Jerusalem, with its foundation stone serving as a link between earth and heaven. So the foundation stone was the link between earth and heaven. So the foundation stone, okay, well, that's the Stargate then. There you go. But if that was what Nebuchadnezzar envisioned, then Babylon had to replace the existing post-diluvial space link, Jerusalem. Having taken over Nippur's pre-diluvial role to serve as mission control center after the deluge, Jerusalem was located at the center of concentric distances to the other space-related sites. Calling it the navel of the earth, the prophet Ezekiel announced that Jerusalem has been chosen for this role by God himself. "Thus has said the Lord Yahweh, this is Jerusalem. In the midst of the nations I placed her, and all the lands are in a circle round about her." Ezekiel 5, verse 5. Determined to usurp that role for Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar led his troops to the elusive prize and in 598 BCE captured Jerusalem. This time, as the prophet Jeremiah had warned, Nebuchadnezzar was carrying out God's anger at Jerusalem's people, for they had taken up the worship of celestial gods, Baal, the sun, and the moon, and the constellations. And in Kings 23:5, it has a list that clearly included Marduk as a celestial entity. Starving Jerusalem's people by a siege that lasted 3 years, Nebuchadnezzar managed to subdue the city and took the Judean king Jachin to captive in Babylon. Taken to the exile were also Judea's nobility and learned elite, among them the prophet Ezekiel, and thousands of its soldiers and craftsmen. They were made to reside by the banks of the Kabur River near Haran, their ancestral home. The city itself and the temple were left intact this time, but 11 years later, in 587 BCE, the Babylonians returned in force, acting this time, according to the Bible, on their own volition. The Babylonians put the torch to the temple that Solomon built. In his inscriptions, Nebuchadnezzar offered no explanation other than the usual one, to carry out the wishes and to please my gods, Nabu and Marduk. But as we shall soon show, the real reason was a simple one, a belief that Yahweh had departed and was gone. The destruction of the temple was a shocking and evil deed for which Babylon and its king, previously deemed by the prophets to have been Yahweh's rod of wrath, were to be severely punished. The vengeance of Yahweh our God, vengeance for his temple, shall be meted out in Babylon, announced the prophet Jeremiah, predicting the fall of mighty Babylon and its destruction by invaders from the north, events that came true just a few decades later. Jeremiah also proclaimed the fate of the gods whom Nebuchadnezzar had invoked. Declare among the nations and proclaim, raise the sign, announce, do not conceal, say, captured is Babylon, withered is Bel, confused is Marduk. Jeremiah 52. Divine punishment upon Nebuchadnezzar himself was commensurate with the sacrilege crazed, according to traditional sources, by a bug that entered his brain through his nose. Nebuchadnezzar died in agony in 562 BC. Now listen to that. Divine punishment upon Nebuchadnezzar himself was commensurate with the sacrilege. Crazed, according to traditional sources, by a bug that entered his brain through his nose. Now, I mean, my God, we've seen all this stuff. I mean, we've seen so many references here. Star Trek references, Star Wars references. I mean, the fucking Anunnaki sound like they're flying around in these winged birds. It sounds like Klingon bird of prey, and they're, pouring fucking semen and everything. But that's highly interesting that, I don't know if you guys remember the Star Trek film, The Wrath of Khan. And when they crash down on this planet that Khan had been marooned on, he takes Chekhov and this other guy, and he takes these creatures and he puts them in their ear, and it goes in and it wraps around their brain, and it makes them, he puts Chekhov and this other guy under mind control, makes them do their bidding. I mean, it sounds just like that. Neither Nebuchadnezzar nor his three bloodline successors, who were also murdered or otherwise disposed of in short shrift, lived to see an arrival of anew at the gates of Babylon. In fact, such an arrival never took place, even though Nibiru did return. It is a fact that astronomical tablets from that very time record actual observations of Nibiru, alias the planet of Marduk. See, that's a perfect point, though. The people back then, they would have, if indeed Marduk is coming in a ship that's as big as a planet, it would have been, they would have seen that as a planet, see him returning in a planet. I agree with that. I think it's some kind of giant fucking, Death Star thing that he's coming in. I really think that that's probably pretty accurate. It is a fact that astronomical tablets from that very time record actual observations of Nibiru, alias planet of Marduk. Some were reported as Omnia, for example, a tablet cataloged K8688 that informed the king that if Venus shall be seen in front of and rising ahead of Nibiru, the crops will fail. But if Venus shall rise behind Nibiru or after it, the crop of the land will succeed. Of greater interest to us are a group of late Babylonian tablets found in Uruk. They rendered the data in 12 monthly zodiacal columns and combined the text with pictorial depictions. In one of these tablets, the planet of Marduk, shown between the Aries ram symbol on one side and the 7 symbol for Earth on the other side, depicts Marduk within the planet. Now, see, there you go. So even the depictions of these things actually show Marduk, and they show him sitting inside of a planet, right? Because that's what it would have been. It was like a ship. He's inside of it. That's why. See, there you go. It's a fucking Death Star, dude. Yeah, because even the depiction showed him sitting. They wouldn't have depicted it like that if it was him coming from a planet itself. It was depicted like that because it was a ship the size of a planet. Their only reference point was to call it a fucking planet because it's so goddamn big. Another example is tablet VAT 7847. It names an actual observation in the constellation of Aries as the day when the gate of the great Lord Marduk was opened. Oh, the gate was opened, huh? Yeah, the Stargate. When Nibiru had appeared into view and then has an entry, day of the Lord Marduk, as the planet moved on and was seen in Aquarius. Even more telling of the coming into view of the planet Marduk from the southern skies and its fast becoming Nibiru in the central celestial band were yet another class of tablets, this time circular, representing an advance backward to the Sumerian astronomical tenets. The tablets divided the celestial sphere into three ways: the way of Enlil for the northern skies, the way of Ea for the southern skies, and of Anu in the center. The 12 zodiacal calendrical segments were then superimposed on the three ways as shown by the discovered fragments. Explanatory texts were written on the back side of those circular tablets. In 1900 AD, addressing a meeting of the Royal Asiatic Society in London, England, Theophilus G. Pinches caused a sensation when he announced that he had succeeded in piecing together a complete astrolabe. As he called the tablet, he showed it to be a circular disc divided into three concentric sections and like a pie into 12 segments, resulting in a field of 36 portions. Each of the 36 portions contained a name with a small circle below it, indicating it was a celestial body and a number. Each portion also bore a month's name, so Pinches numbered them from 1 to 7, starting with the Nisan. Or 1 to 12, rather, starting with the Nisan. The presentation caused an understandable sensation, for here was a Babylonian sky map, divided into the three ways of Enlil, Anu, and Ea Enki, showing which planets, stars, and constellations were observed where at each month during the year. The debate over the identity of the celestial bodies, at the root of which lurks the notion of nothing beyond Saturn, and the meaning of the numbers has yet to end. Also unresolved is the issue of the dating. In what year was the astrolabe made? And if it was a copy of an earlier tablet, what was the time shown? Dating opinions range from before the 12th century to the 3rd century BCE. Most agreed, however, that the astrolabe belonged to the era of Nebuchadnezzar or his successor, Nabuna-id. The astrolabe presented by Pinches was identified in the ensuing debates as P, but has been later renamed Astrolabe A because another one has since been pieced together and is known as Astrolabe B. Though the two astrolabes at first glance are identical, they are different, and for our analysis, the key difference is that in the B tablet, the planet identified as Mul Nebiru, deity Marduk, planet Nibiru of the god Marduk, is shown in the way of Anu, the central ecliptic band, whereas in the A tablet, the planet identified as the Mul Marduk, the planet of Marduk, is shown in the way of Enlil in the northern skies. The change, see, that's because one is talking about Nibiru, the other is talking about Vulcan. But they throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that they're talking about both. The changes in name and position is absolutely correct if the two astrolabes depict a moving planet, Marduk as it was called by the Babylonians, that after having come into view high in the northern skies, as in A, curves down to cross the ecliptic and becomes Nibiru, the crossing. When it crosses the ecliptic in the way of Anu, as in the B tablet, the two-stage documentation by the two astrolabes depicts precisely what we have been asserting all along. The texts known as KAV-218, columns B and C, accompanying the circular depictions remove any shadow of doubt regarding the Marduk-Nibiru identity. Month, Adar, planet Marduk in the way of Anu, the radiant Kakaboo, which rises in the south after the gods of the night finish their tasks and divides the heavens. This Kakaboo is Nibiru, the god Marduk. While we can be certain for reasons soon to be given that the observations in all those late Babylonian texts could not have taken place earlier than 610 BCE, we can also be sure that they did not take place after 555 BCE, for that was the date when one called Nubana-id became the last king of Babylonia, and his claim to legitimacy was that his kingship was celestially confirmed because the planet of Marduk high in the sky had called me by my name. Making that claim, he also stated that in the nighttime, he had a vision that he had seen the great star and the moon. Based on the Kepler formulas for planetary orbits around the sun, the whole period of Marduk-Nibiru's visibility for Mesopotamia lasted just a few short years. Hence, the visibility claimed by Nabuna-id places the planet's return in the years immediately preceding 555 BCE. So when the precise time of the return? So when was the precise time of the return? This is one of the more aspects involved in resolving that puzzle. There is more aspects. The prophecies of the darkness at noon on the day of the Lord, a solar eclipse, and such an eclipse did in fact occur in 556 BCE. Solar eclipses, though, are much rarer than lunar eclipses, which are not uncommon. They happen when the moon, passing in a certain way between the earth and the sun, temporarily obscures the sun. Only a small portion of solar eclipses are total. The extent, duration, and path of total darkness vary from passage to passage due to the ever-changing triple orbital dance between the sun, earth, and the moon, plus Earth's daily revolution and its changing axial tilt. We're going to leave it right there for tonight. There's still a lot left. I thought I was going to try to get through as much of this, but I think that's out there. My email address, man, I say it 100 times a show. It's up on the contact support. globalrealityshow@gmail.com. There you go. Yeah, I mean, I really am starting to think that, you know, we've just been, again, as we have with everything, with all religion and all this stuff, the interpretations and what we've been told, and just, we haven't been given the context, you know, this big giant planet returning. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe that sounds kind of like, you know, bullshit, but the fact of a ship being the size of a planet, well, that's a little easier to swallow for me. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. You can buy your copy of The Secret Right Volume 2 on DVD and Blu-ray right now. And you can also support our work by hitting up the chip-in banner for the bills for the month. We need to raise that. That's our goal per month now, is what we have there. That's what we got to raise for this month. And then we're also trying to raise $1,500 for the initial first budget of the Rock Wall film. So please help us out if you can at TheGlobalReality.com. My name is Josh Reeves, and I love each and every one of you, and we will see you tomorrow for the broadcast. You guys have yourselves a great, fantastic night, morning, and take care.